Hello, everybody, and welcome to another wrestling chat. I'm Superstar Mercy Graham, and I'm joined by beautiful Bob and sweet Steve. It's the Midnight Grahams, and we're taking a look at our favorite wrestling promos of all time. Bob, how are you doing?
I can't complain, man. Doing stuff, saying things, ready to talk about all the promos. Everybody flapping their gums, twiddling their thumbs, yapping, schmoozing, networking. What do you say? Frothing at the mouth, chomping at the bit, drool dribbling down your chins. We never stop rocking, Daddy. Let's talk some promos.
Do you have any promo codes?
I do, as a matter of fact. One of the things I like to do, and all of my choices, I think we all have 3 choices, all of mine are brought to you by Pepsi Zero, which is the same great refreshing taste as regular Pepsi, but none of the sugar and none of the calories. You can go to PepsiCola.com/Zero, enter the promo code.
What happens?
Nothing happens.
What happened?
Waste of time.
And Steve, how you doing?
I'm all right. I'm just the jobber tonight. I'm in here with 2 big pros, and so I'm just here to take bumps and
no,
and go
man.
flying for you
You're
guys.
the Ole Anderson. You're the Ole Anderson. You're the anchor. You're the guiding light. You're the cross-armed, wide.
I'm the big grumpy guy that no one gets along with in his later years. Yeah, we're good.
Man, I love Ole, the original Rock. When I first heard them calling him the Rock when I was watching old NWA, and out of nowhere, it was during his very short face run, and they started calling Ole the Rock, Ole Anderson. I was like, I'm in heaven here. Ole the Rock Anderson.
So you got to remember, I grew up on Georgia Championship Wrestling and Crockett Promotions down this way, and I never cared for the guy. Never trusted him. Never liked him. Him or his cousin Arn, or his brother Arn and their cousin Rick.
Yeah. Arn went from what was he? He was originally a cousin, and then they made him a brother.
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah. So we're talking about promos. We're talking about talking them into the building, and both of you know a little bit about that. Both talking people into the building and then talking at people once they're in the building, and the importance of talking. Kind of goes back to that Bret Hart scale we did last time. How it's not just wrestling, it's not just look, but promo ability. And there are a lot of great talkers in wrestling history. We're not doing a comprehensive list of the best wrestling talkers ever. That's not what this is. Maybe some other time. But what this is just our personal favorite promos of all time. The promos that are like not just good, because Piper isn't on this list. He's one of the best talkers. Flair is one of the best talkers ever. He's not on this list. As great as Piper was, there was never that one Piper promo where I'm like, that promo. You know, they're all great. They're all equal almost. But we're talking about the special ones where when you're done, Mean Gene went, whew, and you know that was one for the ages. That wasn't just to sell match at the Garden that weekend, but we'd be listening to it 30, 40 years later on this live stream. So today, we're going to do each of our top 3s, and why don't we kick it off with a Randy Savage promo. This is off of Bob's list.
Oh, yeah.
And Bob, you want to set this promo up, when and where and why?
Yes, I do. Obviously, to any hardcore wrestling fan, it's WrestleMania 6, April 1st, 1990, 6,678 people. Here's the reason I love this. For the Macho King era of Randy Savage, I think gets glossed over, and it was like a year and a half worth, and he did some amazing work. Here's the reason I love this. It's only a minute long, stayed in my brain forever. And of course, I love Randy Savage. I was going to put something with Randy Savage in here, but this one is so odd. They had just had this it was during an intermission of WrestleMania 6. I guess the semi that when they had intermissions, before intermissions, they'd have a big match and take a break. So it was Savage and Sherry versus Dusty Rhodes and Sapphire, and Elizabeth was the guest, and Dusty Rhodes had a surprise called the Crown Jewel, no relation to the current Crown Jewel pay-per-view they currently do for the Blood Money. But no, I know, sorry. And but either way, this was amazing because Randy Savage, who's usually so flowy and buttery and silky, you know how everyone does an impression, and you and I are both going to do it anyway. They always impersonate.
Yeah, we are.
People always impersonate Slim Jim Randy Savage. It's intense and step into it. But Randy Savage, most of the time, was actually it was like a river of maple syrup, you know.
With some crusty bits in it.
Yeah, he had some gravelly, but it was like you could flow along. But here, he's out of sorts. Sherry and Savage are both visibly sweaty, and you know that they were attacked with the camera, or Mooney shoved the microphone in their face and some cameras, like pretty much as they got back through. It's a Toronto Sky Dome is big, but whatever, Gorilla, whatever. They got a camera shoved in their face pretty quickly because they're both sweaty, and Savage is oily. He's out of shape.
No baby oil.
He's in great shape, you know what I mean? But he's out of sorts, and he's got one of the last times we saw the physical crown. Sherry's losing her mind. Mooney keeps doing these eyeballs to the side as if someone's telling him to wrap it up, which is hilarious to 5 seconds in. But there's a sense of urgency in him losing control. And you watch Randy Savage, you find out what got into his head. We learn in this 1 minute how much the existence of Elizabeth got into his head. And also, WrestleMania was always a week before Easter, and he's wearing Easter colors. Kind of cool. And I'll leave it there.
I like to call this one "Suffering Builds Character."
Great line. Great line.
Here we go.
The Macho King, along with sensational Queen Sherry and Macho King Randy Savage, you got a lot more than you expected in this match, especially with the appearance of the crown jewel, Miss Elizabeth.
You hit the nail on the head, and you better get on the phone and call somebody, because suffering builds character in the American dream. I didn't think that you deserved my full attention, but mind games are my thing, yeah. And suffering builds character, and you're gonna learn a lot of character, and the crown jewel doesn't exist.
Macho King, we know you're fired up, but what does the future hold for the Macho King and the Queen of the World Wrestling Federation sensation?
It'll never happen again. We'll never be embarrassed again, and I guarantee you the American dream will feel the wrath of the Macho King and the sensational Queen. You sealed the nails on the you-know-what, and the crown jewel doesn't exist, and I got ya. I got all of you now.
This one is far from over. Let's go to Mean Gene Okerlund.
What a ride. Are you tired? That was a minute long.
You know, Steve, you know all about the good book, and the good book says guard your heart, right?
That's right. That's right.
So I'm a little hesitant to share how much I love this promo. But yeah, chill bumps. Bob, I never knew about this promo. And I've seen WrestleMania 6 countless times. I never knew about this one. I don't think it was on the tape that I rented back in the day and rewatched over and over again.
That's possible.
I don't remember this one.
My VHS recording was directly from the pay-per-view. It's possible that they didn't put it on the whole deal. It is on the Peacock network. Yep. So you can find it in there if you want to scroll. It's almost like in a dead center for those who have it, whatever.
It's such a throwaway, and it's really one of his bad. Like, I listened to it today and I went, he lost, and he's turning this into, but I actually won because my character is built, and like he found a way to come out on top even though he lost the match.
He lost his mind.
Well, here's the thing, and this may be why it never struck you, Michael, just off the top of my head. If you're standing alone, this is amazing. I mean, like this is an amazing preview on its own. But knowing it's right on the heels of the big moment of Dusty beating him and Elizabeth coming back, if you're watching it in the context of the show and you're just kind of trying to get to Hogan Warrior or whatever the case may be, this is just Macho Man pitching a fit, and you miss those amazing things that he's saying, you know, and the crown jewel doesn't exist. You know, he's not wearing suffering builds character, and he throws a little, I'm going to tell you we're coming. And I like when he says, we didn't take you seriously enough. You know, like he's putting over Dusty, but at the same time,
right? He's not calling him a slob and an old man,
but he's also not saying I'm defeated. Right. You know, I'm building up now, and this is a great Macho Man promo. There's just the anger, and then look, and you can't miss that Sherry is running around just screaming and angry the whole time.
How much does that add? The chaos.
Yeah, so much that she's more out of control than he is. He's the calm one. Calm down, Sherry.
She's the one who took the pin, if it matters, because Randy Savage didn't lose any of that. And to your point, Steve. Yeah, it was during an intermission where, if you watch, I think Gene Okerlund talks to Demolition right after this. Mm-hmm. And before this, it might have been, I think it was Gene and Sean, and maybe it was Gene talking to like Bobby Heenan or whoever. So really, when you got back, they had like a minute left in their 5-minute intermission. So really, they were just showing you stuff, but in a weird way, because this one, because I had the VHS off the pay-per-view, like, and I watched it that tape a million times as a kid. In many ways, this is my Randy Savage. This guy, and he does a great one before the match too, where obviously they're dressed up and they're calm and cool and collective. But this one, this is very much my Macho Man. Suffering Builds character is an amazing line. He never says Elizabeth's name, not once. He refuses to. He shows you how much it's under his skin and how dangerous he's about to be. Yeah, this is my Macho King. This is my Macho Man. It's A+ for me.
Now, here's my ignorance of this time. I feel like you mentioned 1.5 years he was the Macho King, and I remember him being the Macho King very vividly. That's, I didn't get a lot of WWF where I was, I was down in that Southern territory. So even in 1990, all I was getting was maybe Superstars. I was getting to watch every now and again. But what was it? The next WrestleMania when he loses and his career match, and then Elizabeth comes back, but this seems to kind of start
madness. Kingdom of the Madness is cracked, and he stopped being Macho King that night.
Yeah. So it's but here this is one of those things that begin to lead down that road. It seems like I don't know that they meant for it to be a long-term story like that, but just to have Elizabeth around, just like as you said, Bob, to see what it does to him, I love it. It's a great moment in history for the Macho Man.
We're only 1 year removed from Mania 5, which was the Mega Powers exploding, Elizabeth and a whole spiel. We don't need to recap all that, but it shows you it's only 1 year later. She's still in his head. And 1 year later, WrestleMania 7 is the whole... Elizabeth never really went away. We think of the Macho King like, oh, Elizabeth was gone. Elizabeth never really went away for more than a few months at a time. But it just meant so much. And that's the thing. Like, you didn't see much of, except a little bit of WWF Superstars. And how memorable was it? Because clearly you still remember. But either way, that's...
It's a really important promo too, because we got to see his reaction to Elizabeth in the match, but we didn't get to hear anything. So this little tiny throwaway, to everyone else, it's a throwaway. And yeah, Mooney's looking like how much time we got. And in Randy's mind, everything matters, everything counts. And I got a Randy promo later on talking about how everything counts to him. You don't tell him this is a throwaway match. No, it means something. We've been building here. He's one of those actors who would go, my character wouldn't do that. And that's a hill he would die on, and that's a job he would quit from, to say, no, my character wouldn't do that. This reminds me the wisdom of Suffering Builds character. It's not another wise promo, but you remember the one where he went, nothing means nothing. I think it was right after he lost the Intercontinental title, and he came out, nothing means nothing. And me and Gene's confused. Nothing means nothing. Nothing means nothing. Like, nothing means nothing. Nothing means anything to him anymore because he's lost his precious Intercontinental title. So as crazy as a character as he normally appeared, he'd have these little tidbits of wisdom. And nothing means nothing is actually, it's like Bill Murray in that, I forget what movie it was, but it just doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. Kind of like let it go. Don't worry about it. Nothing means nothing. Suffering Builds character. You never know when Randy Savage is going to drop these truth bombs weaved throughout his manic promos.
He would do that to you. And he's so sweaty. Like, you just know they're disheveled. I love it.
All right. That is a fantastic promo. Thank you for letting me know about that one. And we're going to queue up the next promo. And it's going to be the Louisville Slugger himself. And I like to call this one... See, for these promos that we're going through, I don't know if you guys have names for these promos, but like that one to me, even though I just heard it for the first time today, I just went, that has to be called Suffering Builds character. That's got to be what that promo is called. The Warrior promo, which isn't on my list tonight, but the nosedive, right?
Yeah, I know.
You say the nosedive, everyone knows what you're talking about. So I
call this white suit.
What's that?
I call this one the white suit in my head.
Oh, the white suit. That's a good one. I don't know what else to call it because I've heard it before, but quite some time ago. I just called it the Midnight Express.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. I like that.
Let's give this one a listen. One of the greatest tag teams of all time and one of the greatest talkers of all time.
This is one of them. It's one of my favorites, and I've actually probably only seen it a couple of times in the last few years. But what he accomplished during it was always so impressive to me. But it's 1989. Is it 80? Yeah, it's 89. The week before, James E. Cornette and his Midnight Express team, they were jumped by another manager, Paulie Dangerously, of course, who became Paul Heyman, yada yada. And I guess the first two members of the Midnight Express, Dennis Condrey and Randy. Always mess up Condrey. No, that's
Randy Rose.
Rose. See, I keep thinking Randy Rhodes, but that was the guitarist for Ozzy Osbourne. I'm like, it's not Rose.
No,
it's Rose. I always get. That's how I was in trouble with that.
Which they weren't really the original Midnight Express. I think they were in a stable together, but
Dennis Condrey was originally, it was Dennis and Bobby for the original Midnight Express.
Yeah. So calling Randy Rose the original Midnights isn't really true. I know they teamed together, but they weren't called the Midnights, right?
No. Not to my memory. I mean, it would have been a little bit before my time in a different territory.
Okay.
If they were, yeah.
It was one of those weird times where, and by '89, this was fully called WCW. I mean, it was already purchased, Ted Turner and everything else. So, but they would still have these references, and they would never really deny the existence of outside wrestling, like WWF was known for doing for so long at the time. So they would just acknowledge history and everything else. But you know, the Midnight Express that you're looking at now, Sweet Stan and Bobby with Cornette, they were heels and had feuded on TBS with the Rock and Roll Express and Road Warriors, etc., etc. But they had gotten jumped by two who were probably, to many of the fans, to probably about a couple of unknowns. But it was explained, and I think it was the week or two before. Of course, Cornette wore a white suit, and the giant cinder block size cell phone of Paulie Dangerously was busted over his head. And of course, he wore a white suit so he could bleed all over, and you can see. And I think I'll just for what Cornette accomplished during this. Remember, they hated this rich boy, mama's boy type of character who hid behind great wrestlers for years and years, and for what he accomplished in this short amount of time that I've never seen anyone do in just a couple of minutes. I think it's 3 minutes, but either way, but that's all I got. The bad guy manager was attacked by some folks the week before, and he was bloody, and there's his suit.
And unlike WWF, where a bad guy would be turned good simply because he got attacked, in NWA and Crockett, you weren't necessarily good. You were just a bad guy fighting another bad guy, and people were just happy to see a bad guy getting his butt kicked, regardless of who was doing it.
Nothing more we can say about that, but I know you have plenty to say. That's real good, Paulie. That's almost worthy of me, brother. Almost worthy of me and the real Midnight Express. You know, Jimmy Crockett, Tommy Edwards, all the people at TBS, everybody that has anything to do with this program staying on the air have already told me, don't say what you want to say, Jim Cornette, or we'll never stick you in front of a camera again. So this is the censored version. As soon as that happened, my mama found out that I got hurt. She called me up. She said, Jimmy, come on home. Don't worry about it. I'll have the lawyers take care of everything. You get out of professional wrestling. It's too dangerous. It's all over with. And I said, Mama, you're going to have to get over it, darling, because it's about damn time I did something on my own.
Boom. I got this one, Mama.
I'll tell you something right now, brother. It takes more than a couple of geeks. Yeah, that's right, geeks. I like that word. So
can you say that?
It takes more than a couple of geeks.
On TV?
Wearing funny-looking clown outfits with original Midnight Express on the back. Copying our moves and taking our name to be the Midnight Express. Dennis Condrey, you say you carried Bobby Eaton around. Well, at first it was an equal partnership, Dennis. But toward the end, Bobby Eaton was carrying your big fat butt around. That's what actually happened. Bobby Eaton and Dennis Condrey were never the U.S. Tag Team Champions for 15 months. Bobby Eaton and Stan Lane were. Bobby Eaton and Dennis Condrey were never the Tag Team of the Year. Bobby Eaton and Stan Lane were. Bobby Eaton and Dennis Condrey were the World Tag Team Champions, but so were Bobby Eaton and Stan Lane, and they beat a better team to win them and beat better teams while they had them. So as far as I'm concerned, and everybody in this country, Bobby Eaton and Stan Lane are the Midnight Express. Now let me just come up here, guys, and let me just hold this up. Hold on a second. Hold on a second. I'm talking to Paulie Dangerously right now. Paulie, I have spent 5 years of my life I have devoted 5 years of my life to trying to help make the Midnight Express the greatest tag team in professional wrestling, and during those 5 years, I have been beat up. I've been busted open. I have been stripped naked and knocked off a 3-story scaffold, and I've deserved half of it, but I took all of it, I'm still here, and I'll be damned if I'm a little jerk like you come in here and take my job. Paulie Dangerously, what you are is a cross between Michael Keaton and Jim Belushi. You're a punk with a suit 2 sizes too big and a Jim Cornette joke book slapped in your back pocket. Well, I tell you what we're going to do. You want to fight for the name? We'll fight for the name. And I'm going to keep this jacket. And when that fight's over with and everybody knows we're the real Midnight Express, then we're going to tear this thing in 3 pieces. And Bobby's going to take a sleeve, and Stan's going to take a sleeve, and stick it down Dennis Condrey and Randy Rose's throats. And I'm going to ball the rest of it up, Paulie. And I don't know which orifice on your body's the biggest. I think it's your mouth, but I may have to stretch one. And I'm going to ram this thing straight up to the elbow, up that very self-same hole.
We'll be back after this timeout.
I don't know about you, but Bobby makes that promo for me. He steals the show. Wow, he's on fire. He is an angry young man years before he was an angry old man.
That's why I love him today.
Yeah, listen, nothing's changed. Jim Cornette will always be Jim Cornette. God.
Yeah, he's got fire. He's got fire in the eyes near the end there. There's a point where it goes from promo. I don't know how he could remember all this. I guess he's not remembering. He's got the bullet points. And
remember.
But there's a specific there it is. There's a specific moment where it seems to go from promo to I want to kill Vince Russo type of rage.
I need to offer a correction.
Okay.
In 1980, when I was 3. Randy Rose and Dennis Condrey were in Alabama in Southeast Championship Wrestling with another guy named Norval Austin, and they formed a stable they called the Midnight Express.
Okay. See, I remember hearing something about that a long time ago. I wasn't sure if they actually, and I've heard Jim mention Norval on the podcast as well. So I guess like they absolutely were the original Midnights.
And so Condrey would go to Mid-South Wrestling, according to this, in 1983, and he and Bobby Eaton would then be the Midnight Express. Right. And then later on, they'd go their separate ways, but Bobby Eaton would stay with Cornette, and they'd bring in Sweet Stan Lane, aka 3 3/4-inch Lex Luger. Lex Luger's the 6-inch toy, and Stan Lane's the 3 3/4-inch.
I always thought they were brothers. They look so similar.
They do look a lot alike, but I'm telling you, when I'm watching this, there's a little bit of like, because there's a moment where he says, "Do you want to you come in here to take my job?" And it's like, Cornette might have actually believed that. Like, this is one of those moments where you're watching this and you're like, well, I know this is just story. I know this is just story. Ooh, that may be real. And that's one of the great things about this promo. And 2, they did not change who they were. This Midnight Express did not change who they were, but the familiarity to the fans is what allowed the one statement, and I saw you, Bob, pop with it, when he talks about, Mama, I'm going to have to do this on my own. That one statement is what turned the fans around, and they were pulling for Bobby Eaton and Sweet Stan, and it would be the easiest thing in the world. All you needed them to do was, ambush the rock and roll, and the people would hate him again. This was a no lose situation. For this, and I don't remember. I remember this happening. I remember in '89. I was watching in that time. We were, this was some of the only wrestling I had in those days, as I said. But I don't remember the full outcome. But I know that it wasn't long after this. I think they all kind of parted ways with Crockett, and
it fell apart. Unfortunately, that's one of the real shames of this promo. Like it fell apart. They had a loser has to leave the organization. Condrey left before the match, I think, and
I don't think the match happened, or
I think they had one match all together, but the stakes weren't really all that high. But there was supposed to be a match where there was going to be a definitive winner, where whoever got pinned had to go home, and Condrey just didn't show up to it, so they had to give Randy Rose a substitute partner, which totally destroyed the whole angle, destroyed the whole promo. It didn't matter anymore. So it's such a shame when like you build it and then the match doesn't happen.
It is. I think I love the two. Of course, the two parts that I love the most. Obviously, when he says, "Mama, darling, I'll do this on my own," I pop so much because that's the only time the only instance I've ever watched any heel wrestler, manager, whatever, turn oneself babyface throughout. Because they got jumped, they still started as heels. They didn't do anything honorable to show up until everyone saw him. They knew him as this mama's boy, this spoiled rich kid. And when he said, hey, pretty much in a second, he said, hey, I know who I am or who I was, but on this, I'm pulling myself up by the bootstraps. I'm making a change I'm going to do something the right way. And they believed him. And then the other part was, of course, when they're chanting and they're stomping. Only Cornette and Dusty Rhodes have I ever seen do this in this era, where they're chanting and he has to put his hand up and say, hey, hold on. Yeah. And Cornette's only been the difference is Cornette's only been a babyface for 90 seconds at this point.
Exactly.
That's so cool.
I know. It's the Piper thing. We hate you so much. Oh my God, you're a good guy now, or you're gray area.
This studio crowd, though, in the 80s were very much, they were always very much a crowd that would drown out the heels, that would not and the heels just had to talk over them. Usually they would chant like, we don't want to hear it. We don't want to hear it, or something like that. And so for him he turned the crowd for him, like I say, and Bob, you called it, in 90 seconds, he's able to say, wait a minute, you've got to hear what I'm about to say. And the crowd's like, okay, yeah, we want to hear. We want to hear
today.
What's really brilliant of him is the mama, I'm going to do it on my own, but he also slipped in, I've had everything done to me, I deserved half of it.
Yes.
Again, responsibility. I know I've been a bad guy, and he's just coming off as honorable. Like, a chicken crap heel is never going to accept what's been done to him. He's the perpetual victim.
Well, let's be honest, Michael. He deserved 100% of it, but he's only saying he didn't have
He's holding on for dear life to that heel aspect. Cool.
He's a tweener at best.
Yeah. But I like that he threw that in there. Like, he's given the fans something. Like, oh, okay, begrudgingly, I deserved some of it. But yeah, he did deserve all of it.
You can't insult their intelligence.
Maybe not getting thrown off the scaffold. I don't know. But yeah, that is pure gold right there. And Bob's third? The third.
This one might get ugly.
You want to set this one up, Bob?
Okie dokie. So this was, I always thought it was February. I guess I was wrong. It was March. It was way closer to WrestleMania.
2 more moments here.
The WrestleMania main event for WrestleMania 13 in '97 was always a little wonky. I think it was going to be Bret and Shawn as a rematch, and of course that didn't happen. Shawn gets hurt, loses a smile, etc., etc. We all know the deal. So the main event and what they were going to do with that show was flipping and flopping all the time. And if my memory serves me right, and I hope I'm right on this, I think the day before was one of those pre-Mania, or maybe the week before, it was one of those pre-Mania wacky pay-per-views, and they had like a 4-man battle royal, which is absurd.
People need to understand, like, before this, WrestleMania was always planned well in advance, and the main event was sacred. Like, it didn't flip-flop like this last minute. This was the first time anything like that had ever happened.
And hardly, I don't think it happened many times since then. It was not ideal.
Yeah.
But I think the night or the week, so it was 1 or 8 days before, I couldn't honestly tell you. Bret Hart won a vacated title with something with Vader, Undertaker, Austin, and Bret. And Bret had snuck out somehow and was able to just squeak by a 4th championship.
Well, he won because he's one of the greatest wrestlers of all time.
Yes, of course.
And creator of the Bret Hart scale.
Indeed.
I think he'd give your intro a 4 out of 10, Bob. It's the drizzling, you know what?
Yeah.
Although he would give this stream a 4 out of 10.
And he would go on about it for 20 years. I love Bret. I absolutely love Bret.
Him. Uncle Bret.
But he has to defend against Sid in the big blue cage. And he loses to Sid somehow. I forget if he was cheated or not. Probably. I just really don't remember. But somehow or another, he loses to Sid. So in the end, his 4th title reign was like a day or a week or whatever it was. So now it looks like it's going to be Sid, because they already established we're going to have Sid versus Undertaker and Bret versus Austin at WrestleMania. So basically, it's kind of muddled because Austin was the winner of the Rumble, so he was supposed to get a title shot no matter what you would think. But that had some controversy to it because he won in a wacky way. So, and no one, of course, knew that in February Shawn was going to vacate the belt. What a mess this was.
Yeah.
But Bret loses.
Total mess.
And
Bret, as always, can take a mess, right?
Yeah.
Wembley 92 versus Bulldog, he can take a mess and make it a masterpiece.
Yeah. Usually he's making chicken salad out of the chicken, but this time, no, he's making everything so much worse. And it was shocking because the Attitude Era was not in full effect. It wasn't just the language. I know the language is what sticks out. We still pretty much knew Vince as announcer Vince, even though most of us, I think at that point, knew he owned it, but we just kind of skirted around it. Vince's genuine disgust and surprise, and Austin coming back when he had his hiatus after Mania 12, coming back to a world that was no longer his. Very Captain America-like, except he's not American or blonde. So it's a world that's or handling it well. He's coming back to a world that is no longer his, and he's been losing his mind. And this is his first official snapping of, hey, this is not my world. I used to be like a cowboy in a world of law and order, and I kept that law and order, and now I can't. I've lost control.
He's going through the exact same thing Backlund went through, just 3 years before.
Yeah, totally. And I guess that's all I got to say. It's not, I think in 2 minutes it gets interrupted by Austin. I don't know if that really counts, but I think for at least a minute or so, you get
I got to play it till the end because Sid's line is gold.
Okay.
But yeah, for me, it's the first Attitude promo before all the DX stuff and all the Austin promos. This is actually the first Attitude promo. This is the first, not just because of the expletives, but this is the first ECW influenced. Hey, are we off script here? You know, is this a shoot? And leave it to Bret to be the one that make you wonder, is this real?
We always believe it.
And we're back here, ladies and gentlemen. A few more moments here with you. Vince McMahon is going to try to talk to a very, obviously, Bret Hart, disconsolate Bret Hart.
You're going to be terribly frustrated. Extremely frustrated over what has just happened. Wow! Frustrated is the word for it. This is bull.
Oh, we apologize, ladies and
Screw
gentlemen.
me! Everybody screws me! Nobody does a thing about it! Nobody in the building cares! Nobody in the dressing room cares! So much injustice around here! I've had it up to here!
We apologize, ladies and gentlemen.
Everybody knows it! I know it! Everybody knows it! I should be the World Wrestling Federation champion!
Get him out of the ring.
Is this the most fired up he's ever been in his life?
Keep turning a blind eye! You keep turning a blind eye to it! I got that gorilla monsoon! He turns a blind eye to it! Everybody in that dressing room knows that I'm the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be!
Taking lessons from Macho.
If you don't like it, tough
Well, obviously,
my ass, Brett. All you want to do anytime you go in the ring is cry like a baby. I tried to go out there and help you, and you threw it all away because you're a loser. It could have been you and me for the championship at WrestleMania, but you blew the whole damn thing because you're a loser. At WrestleMania, you know why they call you Stone Cold? Because your stones are so cold. Your stones, you won't come out here and stand in the ring like me yourself. You ain't got to jump me from behind. You got the guts to come out here. Come on. Everybody knows whether Psycho Sid.
ladies and gentlemen, we apologize for the actions of Bret Hart.
That belt belongs
You
to
have lost it.
You are wrong.
Oh, look
That is my belt. You know
We're
it.
going to try
I
and
know.
stay with this as long as we
Everybody in
can.
this building knows.
Bret Hart, ladies and gentlemen. We apologize for the actions of Bret Hart.
That belt belongs
You
to
have lost it.
You are wrong.
Oh,
That
look
is my belt. You know
We're
it.
going to try and stay with this as long as we can. Bret Hart, ladies and gentlemen.
No, little man.
I don't know anything, little
A
man.
little side note, not to get sidetracked right away, but Psycho Sid Vicious, whatever, is probably the king of accidentally saying things to make himself look stupid in every occasion.
Yeah.
He's great at that. And this might be the beginning of that streak of Sid flirting out stupid things.
That was a 10 out of 10. Oh man. Steve, what do you think?
All I could think was how much Brett sounded like Owen when Owen would go off, you know, and enough is enough, and I'm not, you know, later on when
Whiner,
Owen would, you know, that, but yeah, like you didn't see Brett get this fired up ever, and so it was just a different take. And I agree, this may very well have been like the first real attitude thing. Obviously, you know, Austin began that with with Stone Cold kind of became a thing, but with the language and I love Jim Ross. Like, we're sorry. Like every time he'd say we're sorry, everybody, Brett would just keep going. Folks are sorry. Fans were apologize, and Brett would just keep on.
There was no swearing at the time.
Oh, you know what though? I'm going to say this, and I know you guys look. Bret Hart has always was one of the greatest in-ring performers of all time. But if he could have had a little fire in his belly more often with some of his promos, I think that I think I would have been more attracted to the man as a wrestler. You know, I'm very big on. Of course, it's not going to come through with one of my picks in a moment, but I'm very big on promos and people really being able to talk into the building. And I just always felt like Bret was very monotone, and I get that was part of his persona. And
the cool, right? The cool.
Yeah.
How do you scream if you're cool? So
right, but I'd like to see. I don't think it always has to be that way, but like I never really. You know, he never really got enough fire, and at that point, like Bret's even a little scary. You know that like there's no, you know, this guy's a guy that'll beat your tail. You know, he's a guy that'll beat you up and
stretch you.
Yeah,
he'll hook
you for sure. And so, but yeah, but Sid coming down in the end, I don't know anything.
Little man. So in Bret's defense, he didn't know this was going to be aired. The plan was that the show was going to go off the air. I remember this in an interview when he was airing all his grievances. I think he was in WCW at the time, and he said like the plan was we were supposed to go off the air, and that's why I started swearing. He goes, if I knew we were on the air, I never would have done all that swearing. I thought it was just, you know, dark match, you know, for the audience. And then I find out it aired, and he felt, you know, betrayed, along with a whole bunch of other things leading up to his departure. So this was just another drop in the bucket for him. Like, what do you mean it aired? It wasn't supposed to air. So go figure, like his most fired up promo ever, maybe, and he didn't even think it was going to air. It didn't count. No. Kind of reminds me of Brad Armstrong, right? Everyone always said in the back, one of the most charismatic guys you'd ever meet. But when the camera was on, that's the thing with Bret. I don't know. The promo just didn't come out until he thought the camera was off.
What a missed opportunity though to take something like this. And I know they ended up doing like the whole Canada versus USA kind of thing and all. And of course, you know, you're running headlong into the screw job eventually and everything. But what a missed opportunity, like to actually go to Bret and say, obviously there was the money thing, so he wouldn't have stuck around as it was, but to be able to say, why don't we do a screw job on you, Bret? And you just begin to come unglued as a person. Like you become this paranoid guy. You were once so great, and now you're paranoid, and everyone's out to get you, and everything, you know. And somehow you have to overcome those odds, you know. And this kind of be the beginning of that, you know. Everything you kept the cameras rolling, and you know that's not what I want the people to see. You get, you know, and
I'm trying to craft a character,
right. But instead, you know, and I'm a hero, and you made me look like a fool, you know, that kind of thing.
You know, the one part of the promo that really makes me feel uneasy, or like if I was a fan sitting there in '97 and, you know, my heart would sink, is when he starts going, you know, I'm the best there is, the best there was.
Yeah.
We had all heard that hundreds of times and cheered along with them. Yeah, you are the best there is. And when he says it there, it's like, oh no, we've created a monster.
Yeah.
Halfway through it on best there is, and then on was, you start to hear the mix, a different, definitely like I had some cheers, you know, but a mixed reaction.
Yeah.
The crowd didn't know. The crowd didn't know what to do with him, and that's what makes it so great. The crowd didn't know what to do with him. You know, they're trying to cheer, but at the same time, like, whoa!
I didn't know the guy on the left.
Yeah, hey guys.
There's a couple of great things about this too. First of all, Vince McMahon's face of disgust and disappointment. And also, there it is, that he gets out of the ring pretty much right away, Vince.
After he gets pushed down, yeah. It's a pretty light push.
But it was more about the symbolism. Like he gets up, and
no one ever laid their hands on Vince before. Steve Austin was beating up on Vince. Brett was the first one to push Vince around.
I think it was months. It was after. I think it was during the summer of '97, probably. I think there was some like
Hyper hit Vince with a chair that one time, but that was by accident.
Yeah, that was kind of like But that was a great segment, by the way. But yeah, I think later on, like Brett had some kind of hockey fight, jacket over the head thing with Vince, like later that summer. But this was the first that I can remember, anyway. But Vince's face of disgust and also a little bit of just like disappointment, because Vince doesn't like take the. I'm using the words bump very loosely. He doesn't take the bump and then lay there and hot dog it and hot dog it for the camera and everything.
He doesn't sell it like Mr. McMahon will one day sell things.
Exactly. He sells it like he's disappointed more than he's physically hurt, and he's just upset that this happened.
It's like on TNT when someone would legitimately tick him off. That's exactly what the reaction is. You just head down and gosh darn it, let's get to the next segment. Like that's exactly what he's doing here.
You have to. It's so simple, but the way JR is sincere in his apologies, and the only part I felt like was a work just very briefly for a split second was he had to mention Gorilla Monsoon, who was then the acting president, blah, blah, blah. I never once believed that he was actually mad at Gorilla Monsoon. That's, even then, even now, and forever together, LOL. None of that. But whatever, that's the time. That's just the time. That face, is just, that's what got it for me. And I don't know how many times I've sat around with my comedy buddies lamenting this and this, and one of us who knows wrestling will just go, frustrated isn't the running gag. So maybe that's why I'm like that. This one sticks in my head a little bit more. I just always get a kick out of it. But I want to pick 3 things that because I love the pipe bomb, I love Austin 316 and all that kind of stuff. But I want to pick 3 that we just don't talk about all the time.
That was a great pick. Steve, you want to set up? I'm glad you picked it, because if you didn't, I'd have Dusty twice on my list.
Well, I tell you, I'm like Bob. I wanted to pick some things that I know aren't necessarily there, but I cannot tell you from the depths of my soul how much I love this promo. To me, this is the Hard Times promo, and it is everything a promo should be. It is peak Dusty Rhodes. I don't know that he ever got better than this. There were moments that he had after this, that were good. But the greatness of this segment, I don't know that he or anyone of his era ever achieved again. He's that good. You're leading up. The 4 Horsemen had done a number on him. They put hard times on him, as you'll say.
They put hard times on America.
That's right. That's right.
You know what? I didn't watch NWA at the time, but it was hard times up here in Canada as well.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't realize it at the time, but it bled over into Canada.
The Horsemen had a hell of a reach.
There was a pall. There was a pall over the entire.
It was rainy that summer.
Yeah, all over North America. And so this is him coming back, getting ready for Starrcade, the granddaddy of them all, where he's going to face Ric Flair. They had faced off the prior year, I think is what it was, and it was called on account of blood. Joe Frazier was the referee, and Dusty was busted open, of course, and so he called it on account of blood, and that that ticked everybody off and ticked Dusty off. But now Dusty's not only been facing Flair, but the whole of the 4 Horsemen. And so now this is his return, and this is his guarantee to the people as to what's going to go on. And it's peak Dusty Rhodes. It's one of the greatest of all time.
Dressed to the nines. He's got the suit and the tie and the jeans. Here we go. Hard times.
Here is the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. And Dusty, your fans welcome you back, man.
First of all, I would like to thank the many fans throughout this country that wrote cards and letters to Dusty Rhodes, the American Dream, while I was down. Secondly, I want to thank Jim Crockett Promotions for waiting and taking the time, because I know how important it was. Starrcade 85 it is to the wrestling fans, it is to Jim Crockett Promotions. And Dusty Rhodes, the American Dream, with that weight, got what I wanted. Ric Flair, the world's heavyweight champion. I don't have to say a lot more about the way I feel about Ric Flair. no respect,
No respect.
no honor.
No one.
There is no honor among thieves in the first place. He put hard times on Dusty Rhodes and his family. You don't know what hard times are, Daddy. Hard times are when the textile workers around this country are out of work and got 4 or 5 kids and can't pay their wages, can't buy their food. Hard times are when the auto workers are out of work and they tell them go home. And hard times are when a man has worked at a job 30 years. 30 years. They give him a watch, kick him in the butt, and say, hey, a computer took your place, Daddy. That's hard time. That's hard time.
You know about Skynet
And Ric
before
Flair,
anybody.
you put hard times on this country by taking Dusty Rhodes out. That's hard time. And we all had hard times together. I admit I don't look like the athlete of the day supposed to look. My belly's just a little big. My hand is just a little big. But brother, I am bad and they know I'm bad.
Bull of the
There were
woods.
2 bad people. One was John Wayne and he's dead, brother. And the other one's right here. Nature Boy Ric Flair. The world's heavyweight title belongs to these people. I'm gonna reach out right now. I want you at home to know my hand is touching your hand for this gathering of the biggest body of people in this country, in this universe, all over the world now. Reach it out because the love that was given me, and this time I will repay you now because I will be the next world's heavyweight champion of this hard time blues. Dusty Rhodes Tour 85 and Ric Flair, Nature Boy. Let me leave you with this. One way to hurt Ric Flair is to take what he cherishes more than anything in the world. That's the world's heavyweight title. I'm gonna take it. I've been there twice. This time when I take it, Daddy, I'm gonna take it for you. Let's gather for it. Don't let me down now, because I came back for you, for that man up there that died 10, 12 years ago and never got the opportunity to see a real world champion. And I'm proud of you and thank God I have you. And I love you. Love you!
Cooking and smoking.
Well, I wasn't going to go to the Greensboro Coliseum, but I am now.
I'm going today. I'm going today. The energy still lingers. It gets so intense. And then there's that like epilogue, the denouement, right?
It's a television preacher. He's a televangelist. I mean, right. Like if you grew up in the South, you've heard preachers who do that breathing thing where there's kind of a raspy breathing in as they're preaching and everything. And then when he stops, he's like, my hand is reaching out to touch your hand. That's straight off of like Oral Roberts and Jimmy Swaggart and all these other television preachers of the day. And then to slow it down at the end, you know, it's like, now here's the altar call. You come gather with me because we're going to do this thing together. And, you know, of course, he evokes, I'm assuming it's his father that I've always assumed it's his father he's talking about. That
I wondered, like, is it John Wayne?
I thought it was John Wayne.
Well,
No,
maybe
it's
it
gotta
was
be his
John
father.
Wayne.
It's got to be the plumber.
Yeah, and who he never got a chance to see a real world champion.
John Wayne was a plumber?
No. Dusty's dad was a plumber. I've never heard a wrestler tell the fans, don't let me down.
Yeah.
It's always like, I can't let the fans down. I don't want to let the fans down. I'm sorry I let the fans down. I've never heard a wrestler tell the fans, don't let me down. I came back for you.
Yep.
Like, is he Jesus? Like the resurrection of Dusty Rhodes. It's such an incredible promo telling the people, I need you to be there and
who else could pull it off?
Right. And how much
Jim Cornette?
Unless you gave Cornette an extra 90 seconds.
But how much as a fan does that mean to you when they're saying you're a part of this?
Yeah.
You know, it's the people's champion kind of idea. Yeah. I'm here for the people. And if I'm going to be here for you, then I need you out there cheering me on. I need that, you know, the 12th man or the 6th man if you're in basketball or whatever. I need you there because I'm going to draw off of your love. and I'm going to love you right back, and we're going to do this thing together. And so, unfortunately, it was a dusty finish when it was all said and done.
Everybody goes home happy with a dusty finish.
Yeah. But we come back the next Saturday, and it's like, well, fans, we come find out he did not win it.
The great thing about that is, like, it's not just come and watch a good match. It's come cheer me on. I need you. Don't let me down. And you gave me love. Come and I'm going to repay you. Get the love back. You know, I'm going to do everything I can to repay you, to make you happy. Like, it just, how could you not buy a ticket to this event?
Yep.
So he did win that one, right? He won the belt.
He did, but then there was like something
The
that
next night
was
or
all
something.
said and done. They made some kind of thing where he had to give it back. Yeah.
That's terrible. When you build something up like this, where it's not just great match, fun night, when it's like emotionally charged, you need a 6-month run. Same thing went with Kerry Von Erich's win in '84 over Flair. That needed to be a 6-month reign, and I guess maybe it couldn't have been because of, you know, circumstances beyond everyone's control. I mean, Kerry was grieving the loss of his brother. A lot of people, when they bring up unreliability, you know, alleged unreliability issues or drug issues, no one ever brings up, like, the guy just lost a brother.
Right.
You know, he was a kid who was still grieving the loss of one of his best friends on the planet. But this was...
Well, here's the thing. Everyone went home happy. You know, he'd won. Everyone went home happy. It was after the fact. They come back on TV the next week and they say, well, fans, you know, Tommy Young had to reverse the decision because disqualification in a cage match. You know, Dusty won, but he won due to disqualification because Arn Anderson and Ole had interfered.
That's what Big Dust thinks of that decision, that look on his face right there.
That's right.
Well, Dusty, I mean, my understanding is Dusty is a guy who, as far as championships go, he's a guy who's better in the chase.
Yeah.
And the NWA was, you know, still at this time, I think, it was, you know, the heel champion, the babyface. The money is in the babyface chasing him. And Dusty was a guy, I mean, it's a little extreme to take it from him like the next TV taping. It's a little like couple of months, like some, but nevertheless, Dusty was a guy who did not think the camera was going to film him below the waist, apparently, with the jeans.
Well, look, what I love is look at the collar. Look at the collar. The collar is really spread out. The tie is barely tied on. You know, he's
that tie is
below the woods.
That tie is carrying the team right now. But okay,
awesome.
just a few.
That's awesome.
The couple things that just get me is how timeless it is, because really you could play this promo today and it still means something to everyone. The computer took my job and everything else.
Yep.
And how he's not the ideal, you know, supermodel, bodybuilder type wrestler and that kind of stuff.
Belly's just a little big. His hiney's just a little big.
And little. I'm really nitpicking this because I have a friend who works in this that said too much. The reuse of the word big twice, there's no way that a writer would let that go. Something was too large, something was too grand, something was too grandiose, something was too blah, blah, blah. It was just, you know, he's a simple man. He's
right.
He's
but
not,
there's also, but here's the thing, the problem with a writer, they look and say, we don't need to use the same adjective twice, but there's something poetic about using the same adjective twice. Like this is poetry and flow. It's not,
it's organic.
It's not prose, you know.
You need to believe, Dusty, every promo we've watched today, we believed every word that person said.
Oh, well, get ready, because that'll change in a minute with another one. Then.
So the one nitpick I've heard about this one, and then one of the ones on my list, also a Dusty promo, same thing, a little flub, which I can't stand. I can't stand that someone can listen to this promo and the only thing they have to say is, what does he mean by they can't pay their wages? He messed up. If that's the only thing, if you've got 8 things to say about this promo, you know, this and that and that and this, oh, and he flubbed here, that's fine, that's discussion. But if you hear all this and the only thing is the nitpick, the correction, the aha, there's a point in the promo I'm going to play later, same thing, and I love it because he is so in the moment and he's so caught up in the promo, it doesn't matter. He's just throwing, you know, words out, and it doesn't derail the promo for me. If it derails the promo for a person, I question if that person is even emotionally connected with the promo, or if they're just kind of Simon Cowling it, arms crossed. waiting. Aha! Like that's just a person waiting for the error so that they can go, I contributed. I found the error. Like, this is one of the greatest wrestling promos ever. I won't even say warts and all, like pimple and all.
No, it's
Well, look, I don't even think it's a war. I mean, when he says that thing, number one, that's obviously someone who's not from the South who's critiquing that line.
That's an expression there.
Because that's how an old timer would have said. They can't even pay their wages. They can't.
Okay.
They can't. In other words, they can't earn. But also, he's starting to get ramped up. And when you get ramped up, sometimes you just say things that aren't quite right, but you understand the meaning. The question is, do you understand what he meant? Yeah. It's like a good song. You don't necessarily have to. The words don't necessarily have to be right, but if you know what they meant and you can feel what they're wanting you to feel, it doesn't matter, and there are very few promos that get you to feel what the character or what the individual wants you to feel. Yeah. It's, especially nowadays, especially in these days. And of course, I have so much fondness for this promo, as one of the greats of all time. But at the same time, Bob, you said it, this would fit today. This is a promo someone could do today. And it would, and it's about evoking a certain feeling from the audience where you are able to now suspend every ounce of disbelief you have and say, I'm behind this man 100%. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the magic of professional wrestling, especially now that the genie's out of the bottle and has been for, 2 decades or more now. And the idea of, or really a quarter of a century now, the idea is, how then do we get people to come along with us and believe these things? It's this kind of thing right here.
Yeah.
Where you're able to say, I don't know why I'm so invested emotionally into this thing, but I am. And it comes down to because Dusty Rhodes had hard times put on him. And
it was more than just a match. It was about, you took my ability to provide for my family away. So this is more than just the rankings and, who's champion. It's, you're trying to starve my children. And now, and there's people out there who are worried about, am I going to have enough on my next paycheck to feed my children? So no one really did that. It was all just, I want to move up the rankings. I want the 10 pounds of gold because the champion makes more money. What are you going to buy with the money? A car, Cadillacs, Learjets.
I want a style and profile like Ric Flair does.
Dusty wants to feed his family. He doesn't care about shirts that fit. He doesn't care about dress slacks. But let's move on. Why, Steve? Why the Black Scorpion?
Because I was going to go heel on your whole audience tonight.
The Rock. It's The Rock.
Look, I am one of 3 people in the world that love the concept and the idea of what the Black Scorpion was. I was 12 into 13 years old when this thing went on. I was a huge Sting fan. I was so excited when he beat Flair at the Great American Bash. It was wonderful, and as a Sting fan, it was the greatest thing ever. He came back from the knee, and it's like, so what do you do now? Now, looking back today and understanding the business more than I did as a 13-year-old kid, I understand that what they did not have ready for Sting was that monster heel factory like they have in the WWF for Hogan. And that's what really WCW needed to do at the time. They needed to have that ready to go. But instead, Jim Herd said, we need someone for Sting. And Ole was getting frustrated. He said, well, how about the Black Scorpion? He had nothing going on. But here's this great concept of this guy who kept dropping clues for Sting along and along about who he may be. And there was much cheese in there with magic acts and that sort of thing. Just really, strange and weird. But there are moments where this was really creepy and could have been really good. And quite frankly, the original idea they had for the Black Scorpion could have actually worked and sent the individual into a stratosphere of stardom that he never really enjoyed. But as it turned out, it ended up being Flair, which again, I thought as a kid, I'm like, that makes perfect sense. Of course, Flair and the Four Horsemen are going to play mind games with Sting this whole time. So
should have been Tully.
So So this just is so nostalgic for me, and I'll talk a little bit more about it after we hear whichever one you pick, because I just said pick one.
It's I believe it's the first one.
Okay.
So for folks who don't know, it's actually Ole Anderson doing the voice with
Right.
some kind of distortion.
Sting. Are you listening? Of course you are.
Sounds like the shock
Too much of a hero and a champion to refuse to hear this tape. Sting, I'm going to destroy you. A long time has passed since you last saw me. Oh yes, you know me. Or at least you did. But don't try to track me down, it won't help. Even if you saw my face in the light, you wouldn't recognize me. My face doesn't look the same. Curious? I imagine you are. Of course you are. I want you to be thinking, be concerned, maybe even a little scared. Soon, I intend for you to be terrified. Think back. Who could it be that would hate you enough to want to see you a broken, defeated man? Maybe a little clue will help. How about California in '86? Think about it, Sting. Think about who I am and remember this. You'll have a chance to find out on September 5th at the Clash at Mountain Madness. I'll be there, waiting.
And fading out into Brian Pillman's rock theme is perfect. That is captivating. I forgot how like creepy and eerie and completely opposite of the neon fun WCW. And Ole, incredible. I can't believe that's Ole Anderson. That's like Hollywood voice actor level of subtlety and range there.
Well, now this is on the tail end of the really the back half, but it's still lingering of that satanic panic from the 80s. And so you have this dark, creepy character come on the screen who's threatening your hero. And really, truly, you know, you had Sting and Sid Vicious go at it at Halloween Havoc that year. And there was a real kind of cluster of a match, you know, where Barry Windham dressed up as a fake Sting and came out and everything.
Because they couldn't find anyone that looked like Sting. So, hey, Barry.
Right. But the person who this was originally supposed to be was Al Perez, who did have a history with Sting. You know, they kind of started around the same time or whatever. And I mean, you know, who knows Al Perez these days? You know, he's not going to be someone that rolls off the tongue of fans. But I always imagine, what if he would have gone to Starrcade, been unmasked, but still beat Sting in that cage, you know, and said, I'm the guy that beat, and then you now have Sting chasing him again, or, you know, that kind of thing. I think it could have just added to his career, but at the same time, the fact that it ends up being Flair, to me, was like, that is just as dirty and despicable as Flair would ever be. And it just, I know people hate it. I know they think it's the dumbest thing ever. The problem really ends up in the long run execution. But there's a moment leading into Halloween Havoc where and it might have been at Halloween Havoc, where he's doing some weird magic. But in the midst of all that, he says, Sid wants your title, Sting. I want your soul.
Yeah.
You know, and it's this mind game thing, and it really was a cool mystery and a heel that Sting he got his hands on, but every time it seemed like he was about to beat the Black Scorpion or unmask him, the Black Scorpion showed up. Another one showed up. Another, you know, and what's really neat now is later on in the 90s, Sting would employ that same kind of tactic, where a fake Sting comes down the aisle here and over here and over here, and then he pops up, and then the real Sting pops up from under the ring or comes down from the rafters, you know,
the supernatural stuff.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. Well, just using those same kind of gimmicks and stuff, and it's
doing
like
the Undertaker stuff before Undertaker.
In some ways, for sure. And I just think that, you know, to me, for the nostalgia of it and the creepiness, nothing like this had been done in wrestling. You know,
no, it's like a comic book or a cartoon. The Polar like the Bizarro Sting is basically what the Black Scorpion was. And I remember listening to the Ole Anderson shoot interview where he was like so frustrated he just threw this idea out. He had no plan. And then one of the ideas that was batted around was Ultimate Warrior, which couldn't happen because he was under contract. You know, I was thinking like the only one that really wouldn't have been disappointing is like Flair makes sense, right? It was Flair all along, but Eddie Gilbert, because really,
Gilbert
you know,
could have been good. Yeah.
Even if they didn't, most of the fans didn't know that Eddie Gilbert broke him in, and they still could show the footage. They owned all the UWF footage, and they could say, look, Eddie broke him in, trained him. You know, it's the mentor versus the student.
Yeah.
So I don't know where Eddie was at that point.
Yeah, I'm not sure he wasn't in '90 either, but I just know that there could have been a great story told, and they had Jim Ross calling things at the time.
Right.
If you can't tell a story with Jim Ross and let people know, you know, who this unknown or this guy you may not know is with Jim Ross, then
he'll tell you in 30 seconds the entire history between Sting and Eddie and make it matter and make you care.
Yeah.
So.
And meanwhile, you know, they could have been developing more heels for Sting, like, you know, especially in the southern region where we were. There were all kinds of guys that had gone through Mid-South. I guess One Man Gang was Akeem now up in WWF by this time, but you know, that kind of guy was there were a lot of those kinds of guys down in the South that could have come through WCW and just been great to work with Sting. By the way, The Undertaker debuted in November of this year. This was happening all in the late summer, you know, into the early fall before Undertaker ever came onto the screen as a supernatural character. So there's a lot of things that WCW, you know, gets a really bad rap because of all the mismanagement and the unfinished stuff that would go on down there. But there's a lot of things they did first. Eric Bischoff was the heel authority figure before Vince McMahon was, you know, those kinds of things. Yeah. And this is one of those things. We had not seen this kind of stuff outside of Kevin Sullivan. We had not seen this kind of stuff a lot in wrestling. And it was just really creepy and cool. And to this day, I'm an unapologetic fan of the Black Scorpion Angle.
Bob, what do you think? You gotta go. I gotta go.
The importance of planning is a wonderful example of the importance of planning.
Yes. Yeah.
Obviously, when they start getting specific with California,
let me change the thumbnil here. Just vary it up. Oh, right. That's a better one.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he wouldn't recognize him. When they start getting specific, when Ole starts getting specific, California '86, it starts dropping literal specific hints, and you still don't have a plan.
Right.
I think then everyone's at fault. Because it's one thing for Ole to say, I don't have a plan, we'll make up this Black Scorpion thing, and be really vague and Sting, I'm from your past. You start dropping dates and places like, hey, dude.
The Dunkin' Donuts, 86.
Yes, I know, right?
4:15 p.m. November 13th.
Remember the oil change in 84?
Yeah.
Jiffy Lube, Sting.
That's right. Sting.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Ole
New Haven, Connecticut, Sting, 87.
And that's it's too bad. It was because Flair was gone by February of '91. No.
Yeah.
I'm not a guy who believes in coincidence.
And we got one more for Steve. You want to set up the John Cena? I will never quit.
Yeah. Again, I'm the heel. I'm going to be the heel on this show because I became a Cena fan in a live event in Macon, Georgia. And me and my buddy made a sign that said, "Who knew Marky Mark could wrestle?" And we, along with some other guys in the stands that night in the little bitty Macon Coliseum in Macon, Georgia, ate John Cena alive the entire time he was in the ring. You know, we had some kids
he's around. About to eat you.
we had some kids around us who really liked John Cena. So we didn't go too hard on him, but you know, when we could, and we kind of got some of the kids on with it too, because they figured out, they're just having fun. They're not really trying to ruin our good time. Well, at the end of the show, John Cena in this Macon, the Coliseum probably holds maybe 8,000 to 10,000, you know, when they've got it set up for wrestling. And John Cena on a random Tuesday night, I guess, went around to the front row and everyone, you know, rushed the guardrails, slapped hands, said hello, snap. You know, people weren't really snapping selfies yet at this point, but you know, the ones that did, he did. I mean, he took a ton of time with everyone. Well, my buddy ran down there with the sign and held it up, and Cena steps back and looks at it and goes, "Oh no, you didn't do that," and laughs and hugs my friend, gives my friend a big old bear hug and says, "I love it." And at that moment, I'm like, the guy gets the joke. I'm in on this dude. And I started listening.
This is sorry, it's driving me bananas.
2009.
Okay.
And so this was, you know, this was post Thugonomics and everything. He was starting the hustle, loyalty, respect, and all that good stuff. And I just learned, I'm like, he became what I wanted out of a hero in wrestling. You know, he had a little bit of an edge to him, but he was a white meat baby face.
Yeah.
And at that point, we hadn't had that in a decade or so. You know, it had been a while. And
he was
so
Backlund, basically.
Yeah, and I know I'm in the minority again with my love at the time of John Cena, but I had friends with kids and we watched wrestling and the kids loved it. And it's just hard not to just kind of soak up that kind of childlike enjoyment of something when you're around them. Well, this was leading up to I forget which pay-per-view it was, but it was, you know, it was in the middle of
Breaking Point.
Yeah, Breaking Point. And John Cena and Randy Orton had gone at it multiple times, and now we're going to have an I Quit match. And so Cena had done all the rhyming promos, he'd done his rap and everything, but this is one of the promos that stuck out to me about John Cena more. He tried to do other things like this down the road, but to me, this is the one that was like, that's it. That's, you know, and there's hints of Dusty, there's hints of like that television preacher in here and everything. And I just loved it. It's one of my favorite John Cena moments of all time, one of my favorite John Cena promos. And I think it's one of those that just kind of will stand the test of time.
It's kind of a throwaway. It's in, you know, in the backstage. It's not in front of the crowd. It's 2 weeks before the event. It's not at the go home show. It shouldn't have been such a big, memorable promo, but it is. And here we go.
If Cody wants to win tonight, if he wants to make history, he will do it on his own by being the better man. And if it's not his time, well, then it's not his time. And tonight, if Randy Orton wins and he retains the WWE Championship, well, so be it. Because at Breaking Point, the WWE Champion runs into a brick friggin' wall. I will not quit. I have tasted victory. I have been stung by defeat, but I will not quit. I have been broke down, knocked out, busted up, busted open, but I will not quit. And when it's gut check time and your heroes are measured in heart instead of bloodline, guess what? You're in my house because I will not quit. You want a story? Here's a story. Tonight, Broadway Joe is being played by John Cena. I guarantee victory at Breaking Point because I will not quit.
He knows that this was just like a really exceptional promo. Gene would sometimes do that too. I love this part right here where it's like, it kind of hits John like, whoa, that's in there.
Yeah.
He kind of almost surprises himself.
Yeah.
He changes from being like serious, intense to wow.
Look at the difference in his backstage promo here versus what so many of the others, even you know, 14 years ago were doing, but today still do. In the backstage promos, when they're talking, they look to the interviewer. John Cena, he addresses Josh Matthews for a moment, but then he turns to the camera. Mm-hmm. And the majority of the promo is him looking down the barrel right to the audience at home. He's not communicating with the person holding the mic. He's communicating with the audience. He's communicating with the people who are watching the Titantron in the, you know, out in the arena. He is making his point that here's something that will not happen on this night. You know, you can kill me. This was my takeaway. Well, John Cena's going to die. Because Randy Orton, you know, at this point, Randy Orton was his most dastardly. You know, he's the Viper. He'll do whatever. And I remember this match because John Cena got lit the freak up all night long with the kendo stick. Like, that was the thing that kept coming back. And me and my buddy were like, I would not take a kendo stick for you. I'm sorry. I love you, but I'm not doing this much, like as much as he's doing. And he did. Like, the whole match became Randy Orton just beating the tar out of John Cena.
Is this the match where he's handcuffed to the rope or to the turnbuckle?
I think so.
And then there's a moment where he gets the handcuffs off and he handcuffs himself to Randy.
Yeah.
And there's a moment where he doesn't do anything. He just stands there and he's almost like vibrating. And Randy's like, uh-oh.
Right.
And like this Herculean,
yeah,
godlike physique is just, now I got you. And he takes a moment to just let the guy crap his pants.
Yeah. And again, it's just like Dusty's deal where Dusty went into preacher mode, you know. Cena's going into televangelist mode here. Like, he is, and the crowd, if he would have had another 15 seconds or another 20 seconds to come up a few more times, the crowd was coming along with him. You could hear them chant, you know, going with him every time he said, I will not quit. There were more and more people in the crowd going, will not quit. You know, and so you really had that kind of thing. And it wouldn't be long after this that he would do the never give up deal. And that's what all his merch became, was never give up. Like, here he's wearing attitude adjustment kind of thing, and you can't see me, but it would become never give up, hustle, loyalty, respect. And this is just a great, this is one that sold me on that pay-per-view. I'm like, well, I got to see if he quits or not, because he called his shot. He's Broadway Joe tonight.
There's a little bit of Dusty in there too. There's a line that's similar to Wined and Dine with Kings and Queens and Slept in Alleys and Pork and Beams, where he's I think it's near the beginning. It's very.
He says, "I've tasted the joy of victory and I felt the sting of defeat." Basically, is what he says. Yeah.
Interesting enough, because I guess that night it was going to be Cody and Randy Orton. Interestingly enough, that he mentions Cody, and we're talking about Dusty and whatnot. One of the things I just noticed is that I think this was around the time Vince started basically mandating that you're not allowed to look into the camera, and only top guys are going to get away with it. So just in defense of everyone else, their hands were kind of tied, which is kind of a bummer. But like I said, he addresses Josh Matthews and he looks into the people, and this way you can look into his eyes and you can see that he means everything. Which it's a very wrestling thing to do, is a very sports entertainment thing to do, is to treat it like a movie where you don't see Captain America and Iron Man look right into the camera and you just see them emote and all this hoopla. Again, every single one of these we watched, minus one of them, we believed every word he said. We believed every single word he said, and he surprised himself. He surprised the people. And I want to say, the reason I asked what year it is 09, so we're really deep in the heart of the Cena sucks chance.
Yeah.
But at the time, because in 08, I'm jumping around a little bit, but yeah, because he had an injury from the second half of 07 into early 08. He returns at the Rumble, blah, 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 blah.
Rumble, yeah.
So my point is, we've seen him battered and fought and beaten up by many main event opponents and giants at this point, the great Khali's of the world, etc., Big Show, yada yada, Kane. We've seen him. He's already been tortured before the next 7-8 years of torture continue. So we've seen him bounce up, but we weren't quite yet ready to do the embrace Cena as the greatest when he comes back in the from 2018, 17, 19 on ish. We weren't there yet. So we were in the heart of that kind of mentality. But he gets us. He got us because
he had his Tommy Dreamer moment where Tommy got the crap beat out of him by a Sandman, and people went from hating Tommy to, okay, you can ease up on him now. Yeah. Thank you, sir. May I have another?
I think at this time, there were people who were turning on him because they loved the thugonomic stuff, but they didn't like that he'd gone full white meat babyface. I think
superhero.
Yeah. And but I never, when he got the joke in the Macon Coliseum, I never turned back. I was like, I'm a Cena guy now. And
I could say he seems like a cool guy, but I think it's safe to say he is. We don't have to theorize or wonder. I think it's safe to say he is a pretty amazing human being.
I forget, Bob, you might remember this. I forget who it was.
He's got the Make-A-Wish record, right?
So I was going to say, I mean, the guy's got like 700 something, whatever it is, Make-A-Wish is.
There's never an instance of him getting a fight with a fan, punching a fan. Like, the most we've ever seen him is tell a fan, please, I'm asking you nicely, please and thank you, don't bother me.
Right.
I mean, dinner, please give me a minute. Yes, whatever.
I can't remember if it was CM Punk, but I don't feel like it was. It might have been Tyrus. It might have been Funkasaurus was going to have whatever he had going on at Mania cut for time. And it was going to be Cena who was going on. And Cena realized what was happening and said, oh, I'm sorry, I got to go to the bathroom. It'll probably take me about 5 minutes.
And that's awesome.
And made himself scarce, so they had to go through with putting Tyrus out there.
Wow.
And so Tyrus got his moment because Cena, low key, knew what was happening and made himself scarce, so they couldn't go ahead with Cena.
And the thing that I really
no, you're right.
The thing I really appreciate about Cena too is he seems like the guy who is fully aware and has lived the expression "no good deed goes unpunished." So he does that type of stuff not for anything in return, not for good PR, not even for good karma. He just does it because it's right, and you'll have to kill him.
Yep.
To get him to stop doing stuff like that. So I'm sure it's come back and bit him on the butt, and he just keeps doing it over and over and over again. So he's a rare breed. He
also, not to spill over into your other stuff on your channel, Michael, but he also had one of the great lines in the movie Bumblebee when he's like, they're Decepticons. It's kind of right in the name.
So that's Steve's picks, and now a couple of mine. I'm going to start off with the Randy Savage promo that's a little bit insane. Now, Randy would always be really intense, loud and quiet. But in wrestling, there's a term called, heat, but then there's white heat. And they say white heat is dangerous. When the crowd is really, really loud, that's good. A lot of wrestlers want that. When they suddenly fall silent, that's dangerous. You need to go. Going back to the Dusty promo when he got jumped by the Andersons, that was white heat. And they almost got killed that night. The Andersons almost got killed by the fans who wanted to avenge Dusty Rhodes, the betrayal of Dusty Rhodes. Randy Savage, there's a moment in this promo here to set it up. He had been feuding with Jake the Snake Roberts. Snake had done so many evil things to Randy. He had a cobra bite him and try to murder him with a cobra. He slapped Randy's wife. I mean, this went beyond just beat you up to literally trying to, hurt your family, ruin your family, and murder you. And it's just funny that it was happening to Randy because it's kind of like karma coming back to bite him, on the arm, I guess, because he tried to murder Ricky Steamboat with a ring bell.
Yeah, with the ring bell.
A lot of wrestling is all about beating people up and getting hurt in the ring. And the biggest threat is ending your career, right? He could end his career. Randy Savage is the one wrestler that more than once made me feel like there's going to actually be a death. I felt like when I was a kid, I thought he was trying to murder Ricky Steamboat with a ring bell, not just hurt him, but kill him. And then this match, or the feud, when he's going to get his hands on the Snake Man, I didn't think he was trying to hurt Jake or beat him. I thought he was going to try to kill him. And, it wouldn't even be like a sigh of relief. I've killed him. But he's Mad Max. He's unchained. He's unhinged. And who knows what he'll do after he kills. Right. Maybe he'll go after The Undertaker next. But this promo is incredible. Watch how he vibrates. He's always Randy. But in this one in particular, I picked this one in particular because he is a lit fuse. When the glasses come off, it's rare that he's this insane. Little bit insane.
Macho Man Randy Savage, there is a lot of history between you and Jake the Snake Roberts.
If all you women out there forced to watch your man or your husband laid out unconscious, facing even further injury, that might make you a little bit upset. That might make you a little bit over the edge. That might make you a little bit insane.
Look at the hat. How it's like.
If you've been out there forced to watch your wife, or your woman, or your main squeeze, begging to another man and then getting slapped by another man, that might make you a little bit upset. That might make you a little bit over the edge. That might make you a little bit insane. But not me, Snake Man. Not me. Because I...
White heat.
What I'm going
right
to
here.
do to you tonight!
Right here.
You know something? Maybe I am insane. Maybe I am insane. And maybe it's time for you, Jake the Snake Roberts, to find out how insane I am. Yeah. Right now, yeah. Go on.
And you know when Gene goes, you just watched a great one. There's that moment where he falls silent. The glasses come off, and it's like, uh-oh. That's the uh-oh moment of the promo right there.
Yeah.
Look at the look on Gene's face. Like,
Yeah.
Are we working ourselves into a shoot here, Mr. Poffo? Oh yeah. Love that one.
Yeah, a couple notes. I'm so glad you picked this because it's one of my. I knew when I saw the back of the jacket, I knew exactly what this is and where it's from. So I'm so glad you picked it because it's definitely one of my favorites. Yeah, it's that. There it is. Well, Saturday Night's Main Event. Yeah, in February '92. This was so wonderful. Because first of all, to pull off that intensity and scare people to thinking he's that dangerous with that outfit is. So I think we're used to seeing it. Our eyes just see that outfit and go, oh, that's what Randy Savage wears naturally.
Flowers.
Yeah.
The one with the flowers.
Yeah.
The floral design. Not even lightning bolts.
Who doesn't have a neon cowboy hat with glitter and tassels that says, oh, yeah, on it? I mean, clearly. That's Randy Savage. But he pulls it off, of course.
There's a little Hasbro, the little Hasbro wrestler figure, I think, was in this outfit.
Basically, yeah, he was still selling merch at the same time. The glasses didn't really come off all the time. As a matter of fact, very rarely, especially now. I think more than 89-ish that he would toss them all the time, but they didn't come off that much. Especially this year, he's been. Let's be realistic. He was off the gas for about a year at this point. Let's kind of just call it what it is here. He's not as big and muscular and everything else, but his intensity always made up for it. So he tosses the glasses. We get to see his eyes, and usually I think. My understanding is he was a little bit hung up about the balding and the aging and everything else. He didn't really deal with aging all that well, you know. So it's surprising that in '92 he would be letting you get into his face. And I don't know if it's intentional or not. I wouldn't be surprised because he knows he's wearing a big brimmed hat. Right at the right moment, he picks his head up just a quarter of an inch, and you see the full eye. He hits the light. You see the full face just at the right moment where he does.
Right there, yeah.
There it is, beautiful, and what a thumbnail that is for the whole. And then he goes off, and he's still yelling, by the way, and because he didn't end it with a catchphrase or "ooh yeah" or "dig it," he just went right now, yeah, and whatever, and he's off. He's just gone, and you just know that a runaway freight train has just left the station, and there's not a damn thing anyone can do about it.
That's the face that used to scare me as a kid. One of my earliest memories of wrestling was when '86 Macho would come out with the Intercontinental title that he stole from Tito Santana. And he had the sunglasses, and it always freaked me out as a kid when he would take the sunglasses off and he had those pale, wide eyes because he'd come out looking cool with the sunglasses and the headband or the bandana. Cool. Takes the glasses off like, oh, this guy's not cool at all. This guy looks nuts and scary, and he's got these unnatural, like I'd never seen anyone with such pale bluish green eyes. And that Macho went away, right? Face Macho came in '87, '88, '89. Even as Macho King, he wasn't like this. This brings me back to those '86 promos where he was like scary Randy Savage. It was like one more glimpse at that old, fresh to WWF heel Randy Savage.
Well, it's like Jake awakened that in him, right? You know, like the Snake said, I want all of you, big man. And the things that he did to push Randy over the edge at this point. I have vivid memories of WWF superstars and seeing Macho tied up in the ropes and Snake coming at him with that Cobra, and they put a giant X over the shot of the Cobra, you know, biting Randy's arm and everything. And And just knowing, knowing, well, this isn't real, this is ridiculous, but being absolutely intrigued. And I think if this was 92, I'm like 15, just kind of, and I'm just peripherally checking in and out of wrestling at that point in my life. But I'm like, it's pretty crazy, and for the WWF to be doing this, obviously we're on a downward trend with wrestling in 92. And so to get the intensity of letting Jake slap Miss Elizabeth and do that kind of stuff, but it's so perfect that here in this moment, you see, you brought me back. This is on you, Jake. Maybe it's time for you to see how insane I am. I love it.
And the fact that he keeps saying a little bit insane, a little bit upset, a little. Think about that for a second. Who's a little bit insane? Yeah. There's no such thing as a little bit insane.
Earlier we were talking with Randy Savage, the Macho King, how I was saying, because he was so manic in that WrestleMania 6 one we had showed you, is that, but a lot of times, most of the time, Randy Savage, like I said, it's a mini roller coaster. He's like butter. He's up and down. So when he does, and this is a great example of it, the beginning of this anyway, where it's a little bit insane. It's a little bit, he's still Randy, but it's like something's a little off. The whisper is a little uncommon for him, and he's, like you said, Stevie's been pushed to the edge.
Yep.
He conveyed that, and later on, this
it's like a kettle that's boiling.
Less than 2 months later, there is a beautiful one in the on WrestleMania 8 after he beats Flair. Remember, Flair was bloody and he kisses Elizabeth.
Right. I want more.
I want more, and Flair, Savage gives her the belt. This is yours. Take it and go. And then she goes, and then he's on his knees and he's ripping his own special gold tights apart, and he's still not happy. And next time I'm going to get all of you. And it's, if you ever get a chance, if you're flipping around Mania 8, don't go right to the next match. Find that.
Yeah.
It
goes back to that 6 promo that you picked earlier on. Like, the match is done and I want more. I want another piece of you. And the WrestleMania 8 promo is so unique in that he won. He took the belt from the guy, and it's like, we're not done. Like, no champion had ever been like, I want more of you. I'm not done, destroying you. So again, unique, never been really done before at that point.
Well, and I want to answer your earlier question a little bit there, Michael, where you said who gets a little bit insane. I think it was the great philosopher Steele who said we're never going to survive unless we get a little bit crazy.
Absolutely. Bob, you need to get rolling.
Yeah, I gotta roll, but I'm gonna watch this later because I have guesses on what your next 2 picks are. I think I got at least one of them pinned, and hopefully I'm wrong because I like being wrong. Being wrong is the best thing about life. Surprises are great. But I'm gonna run. So Stone Cold Steve Gloss. I'm glad we weren't glossing over any great promos when we went through them all. Let's see what I did.
That's right. I see you. I see you. I got you.
Good times, man. Good hanging out, you guys. Double M, Superstar, thank you so much for inviting me and doing the thing. I can't wait to check out and see what your remaining promos are. And it was just awesome, man. Just good chance getting to spill out some of the more obscure ones that I just think are that kind of show us a little bit extra of what we love about some of our favorite guys here. So this is tremendous. I got to walk dogs, and I got to do the schmooze and tell some jokes and no bumps tonight.
Take 15 seconds to throw some plugs up before you leave.
Oh, sure. Hey, why the hell not? Hey, you go to the Instagram.com. It's a popular social media platform. No time to explain how it works. At Bob Hansen Jokes, you can go get some of the shirts and the shows, especially if you're in San Diego, if you're in Southern California at all. Check out where I'm going to be. I'm going to be at the Irvine Improv real soon, and some other places a little more south in San Diego. I'm all over the place. Southern California. Come find Bob. We'll rub elbows, grease palms, shoot the breeze, chew the fat, whistle Dixie, wax philosophical, froth in the mouth, chomping at the bit, drool dribbling down our chins. There ain't no stopping us like hermit crabs crawling out of a bucket. We never stop rocking, Daddy.
Thanks, Bob. Appreciate it. Always a pleasure.
Appreciate you guys. Take care, bud.
Bob Hansen has been eliminated.
That's a spot on. That's a.
All right.
I gotta start working on my impersonations, man.
Promo number 2 is now this one is I don't hear it mentioned a lot in terms of greatest promos ever. I couldn't do a top 3 promo without including Jake the Snake Roberts.
Yeah, for sure.
And this one in particular, because I remember I did see this one on the WrestleMania 6. WrestleMania 6 is one of my favorite WrestleManias. Happened down the road in Toronto. Ultimate Warrior is one of my favorites. Beat Hulk Hogan for the double belts that night.
Yep.
And I remember hearing this promo and going, whew. And Gene has the same reaction when he hears it. It was 1990. Jake the Snake had been feuding with $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. I believe the $1 Million belt is in the bag with the Snake. A very safe place where they can't get it. It's, you know, the danger. How do you get the belt if it's in there with the Snake? So they had been feuding, beating each other up, trying to one-up each other. But this promo, Jake is the one you had to quiet down and lean forward to hear what he's saying, because sometimes he would speak a little lower and then the volume would vary. But this is poetry. You want to talk about poetry? I wonder if he's reading this off a teleprompter, if he wrote it beforehand. No writer would have written it for him at the time. But the delivery of this, the message of this is awesome. And every time I hear it, I go, whew, that is Jake's best promo right there. And here we go.
Jake the Snake Roberts, the match is at hand.
Well, the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. Here we are at WrestleMania, and it's the biggest match of your career. Why? Because everything you stand for is on the line, namely the $1 Million belt. Oh yeah, it can be yours once again. You see, all you have to do to get it back is go through Damien and me. But you see, Damien and I don't forget. We remember all the times you made people grovel for your money. These were people far less fortunate than you. People who could use your money for essentials. And what did you do? You made fun of them. You humbled them and you humiliated them. Well, now it's my turn. I'm going to make you beg, DiBiase. You are going to get down on your hands and knees. This time, you'll be the one that's humbled. This time, you'll be the one that's humiliated. And this time, you will be the one that grovels for the money. And how appropriate that the money you grovel for is your very own. A victim of your own greed, wallowing in the muck of avarice.
Longfellow couldn't have said it better.
Love it.
That is heavy. That is incredible.
Yeah. You know, Jake the Snake, I don't ever, and I'm sure they're out there, but I don't remember a Jake the Snake promo where he yells, where he gets louder than what he did here. You know, I mean, he's so good at conveying the intensity of the moment without having to be a shouter. You know, Arn Anderson kind of followed that same pattern, but Arn would get ramped up a little bit. Arn would start down here and ramp up to there. Jake just kind of, you know, you talk about a steady train, but the intensity's in his eyes.
Even when he would raise his voice, it was still soothing. It was like, it was unsettlingly soothing. He's, and the promo itself, so he's going up against a bully, like an absolute bully who's never had his comeuppance for all of the bullying that he's done to people. And now he's running into this guy who is not your typical babyface. He's one of those heels. He's kind of like the Midnight Express in the first promo we watched, one of the first. He's the heel who wouldn't change when he started wrestling other heels. Now, Jake, not necessarily a bully, sinister, but in terms of being a bully, not, I mean, evil, you know, but he didn't bully people the way Ted DiBiase would, like mocking, like Jake says, you know, he wouldn't really mock people. I mean, he'd hurt you, he'd knock you out cold, and then he'd put the snake on you. But he was like some kind of like monster movie villain, like Freddy or Jason type of thing. And for him to be going up against Ted DiBiase is like in school when you got the school bully who was picking on everyone who's smaller than him, and then he runs into the kid who's been to prison who has tattoos.
Yep.
It's like, uh-oh, the kid who doesn't speak a lot, the one who doesn't you know, he's just quiet, he's in the corner, and he's like, you don't want to mess with him, just look at him.
Yep.
and that tough prison kid goes, you know, I don't like you, and I think it's about time someone did something about you. So it was a really interesting feud in that you've got two bad guys fighting each other, but you know, you got one of the bad guys going, I just I don't like the way you've been treating people. He's not after money. That's the thing about Jake, right? He's not motivated by money, and the whole feud is about, I'm going to punish you for your love of money.
Right. So, well, Snake was always kind of back and forth. He's one of those guys that he could not play the heel very long because the people would buy into him. And so, like, some of the great feuds he had in WWF of all places, you know, Rick Rude, his feud with Rick Rude was one for the ages. Was that the one that ended up? That's not the one that ended up at WrestleMania 3.
No, they were in the tournament in 4.
That's
they
right.
Went to a time limit draw.
But remember,
that was before they even were feuding, though. That was just the random match.
In 3, he had Alice Cooper at the ring with him.
Honky, he wrestled Honky.
That's right. That's right. And so I remember Alice Cooper trying to, his scrawny arms. The Snake was bigger than Alice Cooper's arm. But here, yeah. So he went up and down, and that was the great thing about him, is like, you believed him no matter what he was doing. And you're right. As a bad guy, when he was a heel, it was never about trying to pick on someone smaller or less fortunate than him. It was just about him wanting to inflict pain on whoever.
Yeah, I mean, like, when we go, he didn't have many feuds with faces in the WWE before they turned him face, but Ricky Steamboat was one of the big ones. And what was the deal there? I just want to hurt you.
Yeah,
that's all that feud was.
And that's what made Jake the Snake so scary as a heel. So when he is a face and he has a cause, and I think that's the thing, you know, it's just like with the Corny interview we saw earlier. When he has a cause now that he believes in and that you can jump on board with, you know, with Rude, it was his wife. Rude was messing with his wife, you know, and he's like, oh no, not here. Right. And so here it's like, I hate you picking on younger people and on less fortunate people. And the one that comes to mind immediately when it comes to that kind of stuff is the little boy bouncing the ball, dribbling the ball, you know, and DiBiase just kicking it out from under him before he could get to the final count, and just laughing, you know. And it's like, man, he was just a jerk, and so for Jake to be like, no, we're not putting up with that mess, and to say the very thing that's going to bring you down is your greed, you know, and then he throws in the word avarice in there, and so kids everywhere are like, let me get a dictionary and see what that means.
Yeah.
So I love what
wallowing in the muck of avarice. It sounds like something out of Shakespeare.
Well, Longfellow couldn't have said it. Yeah, Longfellow couldn't have said it better. You know, what a great tag by Gene, by the way. You know, like,
makes me wonder if it was pre-written instead of just off the cuff. But yeah, Jake condemning these acts by DiBiase. You could argue, well, Jake, aren't you worse? I mean, you try to crack Ricky Steamboat's skull open with a DDT on the outside, and you've put snakes on people.
Yeah, but Steamboat could take up for himself. You know, he was picking on someone his own size with Steamboat.
Right, and those are all wrestlers that he put the snake on top of. Look, hey, if you got into the DDT, then in a way you're kind of responsible for the aftermath of what happens after the DDT.
Yep. For
Jake to go, you're a scumbag for doing this to all these people. Now people are taking the awful things Jake has done, and they go, oh, DiBiase's worse?
Yeah.
Well, according to Jake, he is. Yeah, so he's making DiBiase the bigger heel with this promo, too.
Right. Yep. It's fantastic. It really is. There's so much that's going on mentally there. And I think, again, that's another mark of a good promo is how cerebral is it? You know, are you making people think? Because the thing about wrestling fans is generally they'll have a short memory when it comes to stuff like this. If they want to come alongside someone and cheer for them, it doesn't matter what they've done in the past. Wrestling, I shouldn't say they have a short memory. They're very forgiving. And so Jake shows up here as a heel. Now, remember, in 2 years, he's going to do the things that he does to Elizabeth and Macho Man.
Yeah.
So, you know, he's definitely on that roller coaster ride of good and evil. But here, man, is a good guy. Like, it's also refreshing in a lot of ways to see a scary face.
Yeah, he's sinister. Yeah. Like, there's moments where he gets angry and he's worked up at what DiBiase's done, but then he smiles and he chuckles. Yeah. He's got a villain chuckle.
Yep.
He's got a villain little smirk. it's still in there. The evil Jake is still in there. And when he comes back, instead of, oh, I'm so shocked, it's, yeah, like we've seen this coming all along.
Right.
We knew this was coming.
You know, a good baby face that's been a heel isn't really going to change much. You know, he's going to continue to do the things he did as a heel, except he's not going to take a powder when things get tough. He's not going to all the chicken stuff that maybe he had done, he's not going to do anymore. Like Stone Cold, you know, you think Stone Cold was this heel who was just, you know, he didn't change as a baby face. You know, that people kept cheering him, and he was doing the same things. Quite frankly, Hulk Hogan wasn't much different as a face as he was a heel. He just looked to the fans more and cupped his ear a little bit. You know,
he's still back raked and choked.
Exactly. Yeah. And of course, Jesse Ventura would call him out on it, you know, but how can you pursue that monsoon? How can
come on, Gorilla?
Yeah, come on, Gorilla. Yeah. So, but yeah, Snake here, man, is just, this is fantastic. I'm so glad you put one in here by him, because he is, I don't know that he's underrated. I think a lot of people who are fans like us recognize the greatness of Jake the Snake, but I don't think a lot of newer fans really understand just how good this man was on a microphone.
And the subtlety. You don't see the subtlety in a business that's all about over the top and vibrating like Macho Man, and the volume and the bombastic, you know, preacher style movements of Dusty Rhodes. You get this guy who does just watch his eyes, the little cock of the eyebrow, the slightest little look at the eyelid just kind of twitch. The subtle, like, directors look at that face and they go, that guy was made for HD, for close-up in like movies that fill up a cinema screen. Like that guy understood subtlety. He understood the close-up.
He would have, you know what, he would have made a great Western villain. You know, if he could have stayed straight and done
Van Cleef style of look at that face. Yeah, he agrees. I like this Steve Dawson guy.
That's right. I met him one time. He was real nice when I met him. It's been probably about 8 years ago, right on the tail end of some of the DDP stuff where he'd gotten cleaned up and all.
Oh, cool.
He was a nice guy. Yeah.
Awesome. So. And my final, the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes.
Yeah, Daddy.
Set this up. It's 1988, December 3rd, 1988. The Road Warriors didn't try to kill him, but they tried to gouge his eye out with a spike.
They didn't finish the job, though.
They didn't finish the job. He's still breathing. So the company had just been bought out by Turner, and the edict came down, no more blood. So Dusty, the Booker man, defiant as ever, no blood, baby. They're going to gouge my eye out with one of their shoulder pad spikes. And unfortunately, this didn't really go anywhere when they had their match, Sting and Dusty versus the Road Warriors. Not long after that, no patch, no injury, because I guess the edict was reinforced, like, no, you're not selling that injury. And then he was gone shortly after that. But one thing we did get out of that whole thing was the eye for an eye promo.
Yep.
And every time I hear it, it is just so powerful. It's so inspirational. You should have got it done. Here it is, Dusty Rhodes, eye for an eye.
Now, this is Dusty Rhodes, the American Dream. I've been doing a lot of thinking here the past few days. There's something more involved here than winning and losing. Maybe even more than a career. Maybe even more than a legendary athlete, Dusty Rhodes, the American Dream. I've been battered, I've been beat, I've been scraped, and I've been cut, brother. I've been cut like a knife in my heart by many, many things, but always I got on my two haunches and rised up, because I am the American Dream and conquered all and came back from all. But this is just a little bit too heavy, Road Warriors. You should have made it a point to get both of them, Daddy. Don't just get one. Don't take one limb. Don't take one heart. Don't take one ear. And don't take one eye. Because I'm breathing. That's the scary part for you. I'm breathing. That's the main thing for you. I'm breathing. You got to live with me breathing, baby. When I get up in the morning now and look out of one eye at my children, I think of you. Now the world's title at Starcade, we gonna take that. But I'm gonna take just a little bit and a whole lot from you Road Warriors. And between now and then, if Sting has to carry me on his back down that aisle, if he has to drag me in a wagon, I'm breathing. You understand what I'm saying? You should have got it done. It's violence for the sake of violence. And now I will turn it around to my violence, my lightning bolt, my fire, my thunder. An eye for an eye.
That might be the angriest any man has ever been in the history of the world.
That's good.
That's good stuff. I remember years ago on Twitter, I mentioned this, and Cody Rhodes, who actually follows me on Twitter, chimed in, and he said this promo, Dusty is obviously one of his favorite wrestlers, but his other favorite wrestler is Sting, and he loves the imagery. He said he loved the imagery of one of his favorite wrestlers dragging his other favorite wrestler in a wagon to the ring.
Nice, yes,
but the message of this is it's such a different type of promo after a beating. Usually the baby face is like, I'm back, and I'm gonna, my hand is touching your hand, I'm gonna win.
Right. Yep.
This promo is, you didn't hurt me enough, you didn't do enough, you should have finished the job. Why didn't you finish the job? This is one of those you'll have to kill me promos.
Yeah, well, it's so much different from the hard times in as much as, like you said, hard times is I'm back, and now I'm gonna come do this for you. I have this mountain I'm gonna climb, and I'm gonna do it in an inspirational way. Like, hard times is really an uplifting, hopeful promo. This is, hey, Daddy, you should have finished the job. I'm still breathing. I love how he just keeps it, but I'm still breathing, And he says it was just violence for the sake of violence, and now you have to put up with my violence. Now you have to accept my violence, and it really is. Dusty's not talking about I'm the great athlete of the day and I'm a superstar. There's none of that bragging. There's none of that fun-loving.
There is at the very beginning the legendary can't help it.
Right. But that's not the thrust of his promo either. Like so many times that was the thrust of the Bull of the Woods, that kind of thing. The son of a plumber who grew up to be so sweet. It was that. But here it's the way he ends, an eye for an eye. It's on. It is on. And listen, I love Sting. I wasn't a little Stinger, but I was a Sting fan from his days in UWF, and this, to me, this is a dream team with Sting and Dusty, and I hate that they had to team up against the Road Warriors of all people. And he talks about, I've had my heart cut out, and he's saying this. These are guys that should not have turned on them at all, but they did.
That's a difference with the hard times. Yeah, like you said, the hard times is inspirational. It's heart filled. This is just a little too heavy. Road Warrior. They broke his heart, and near the end there, it kind of, he looks sad.
Yeah,
we know Screaming Dusty, but look, he looks almost on the verge of tears here.
Yeah,
that this isn't I'm gonna go and beat you for the belts, or I'm gonna go and get my pound of flesh. This is like, I'm gonna do what you did to me,
right? Yep.
But he's not the old Dream here.
No, that's the thing. This isn't a few years later when he would look to Dustin and say, if you'll just have me, I want to be your partner. And they hug in the ring. This isn't, this isn't. As I said, he's not dancing in polka dots. He is mad, and he's coming for you. And I'm sorry, he's scary.
Yeah.
And I think
the old outlaw, Texas outlaw, Dusty Rhodes coming out.
The Midnight Rider, Daddy. Like this is, he's there, and you're like, okay, so the fire is still there, and they lit something up, and it talks you into that match. It talks you into watching that clash. You're buying that pay-per-view and seeing if he and Sting are going to win the day because you want them to. you're now on that quest for vengeance with them. You know, the bloodlust has been awakened in me too, sir, because you have talked me into it. It's awesome. It's amazing. And it shows Dusty's range too, in a lot of ways.
I didn't get to experience this as it was going on, but I, you know, years later through YouTube and tapes and whatnot, got to watch it after the fact. And the Road Warriors, I do remember the Road Warriors before they went to the WWF. I got the NES game where they were on the cover, and I got to play as the Road Warriors in the video game. So I already knew about the aura, the presence of the Road Warriors. And to take those guys who are just so brutal and awesome that you can't boo them. Like they're like Jake, they just got turned face. For them to turn heel and say, we're sick of the fans and all we want to do is beat up. They're like the Joker in the Dark Knight. They just want to watch the world burn. And who's going to stop them?
Right.
Like that's the scary thing. It's not one guy who's just decided I've had it up to here. I've had enough, like Jake. It's two guys plus Precious Paul plus the Brain. Like,
well,
all three of them as a unit turning heel is scary. So what are you going to do to combat this? See, it's a really interesting team picking Sting. Sting is not ready for this encounter, right? Sting is still, you know,
he's still a little young. Yeah. Now
still a little young, and he's going to do his best, but Dusty in this team knows what it's going to take in order to fight the Road Warriors. You don't just fight them. You're going to have to, you know, do eye for an eye, violence for the sake of violence.
Now, this was November of '98. So this is like, this is toward the end of the year. Sting had his match with Ric Flair earlier in the year.
The draw, 45-minute draw.
Yeah, so people were already on that Sting train was rolling. And the thing about Dusty Rhodes is he always knew how to enhance himself by rubbing up and giving the rub to the guy who's on their way up and kind of hitching his way. He did it with Magnum TA. Of course, he was still just as big as he always was, you know, as far as stardom goes when TA was in there. He did a little bit with Luger, and he did it with Sting, you know, and
Barry Windham too. Yeah.
And so by teaming up with Sting, he's continuing to push Sting into stardom, but he's also now hitching his wagon to this guy who is already the rising star. And so it, you know, it made sense, but I'm telling you, dude, I did live through this. You know, my cousin and I did talk about these kinds of things. Like, can you believe this happened? You know, and you always knew the Road Warriors were mean. They were never nice. You know, that's the thing. The Road Warriors were never the nice guys when they came out. It was just their power and their impact was so undeniable. You had to cheer for them.
And when they switched to the big spikes instead of the little short spikes, when they switched to the football spike, you knew it was going to happen eventually. The threat was always there.
Always there, yep. And so to take out Dusty's eye that way, and, you know, of course, then we didn't know the behind-the-scenes stuff. And I think that's the thing a lot of people forget is remembering the moments. You know, I'm 11 years old when this happens. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. I don't know that they've said no blood. You know, I don't, you know, this is just standard NWA kind of stuff to me. You know, I don't really know fully about the sale and the merger with UW. I just know that Sting, this guy I watched on USA, or not USA, on a local UHF channel in Athens, Georgia, Joe Pedicino's wrestling block that he'd put on every Saturday night. And the only one I got to watch was UWF because it came on before my bedtime. And I knew about Dr. Death, Steve Williams, and Sting, and I saw Ted DiBiase before he was the $1 Million Man, and all this other stuff. And I just knew that I liked Sting, and I really dug his charisma. Couldn't tell you it was charisma as a 10-year-old kid, you know. So when he shows up on this television, he's there and he's doing his thing. I remember the Clash of the Champions, the night that he fought Ric Flair. It was a Sunday night. And we had church on Sunday night. And I remember talking to some dude about, I got to get home. We got to get home, you know, not miss this match, you know, and knowing that my parents wouldn't let me stay up to watch wrestling of all things. But it was just still like.
But Mom, it's the NWA World Heavyweight Championship.
That's right. With a penthouse pet as a judge. But so you come a few months down the road to this moment.
Was Lou Thez busy that night?
That's right. That's right. And you come down the road a few months to this moment, and it's just like, you can't hurt the Dream. Like, there was no one else they could have attacked and been the dastardly heels outside of the great Dusty Rhodes.
Right.
And of course, you know, listen, Dusty Rhodes, he knows how to tell a story. He knew how to tell a story. If nothing else, the man knew how to tell a story. And when he was in the story, he definitely knew how to tell it.
And again, with the personal touch too, when I look at my kids, one of which grew up to be Cody Rhodes.
That's right. That's right.
I look at them with one eye. I think of you, like, again, making it personal matters, sell tickets in the wrestling business.
That's right. That's right.
And yeah, it's another great promo that's just much like Cornette promo. Unfortunately, no match really came out of it. I mean, this should have been a War Games. It should have been, although who would have teamed with the Warriors? Ellering, right? But who would be the fourth guy to make up a Road Warriors team?
Well, you know, you could have done a road at that time. You could have done an angle with Sting and Dusty finding another partner to do a six-man War Games instead of an 8-man War Games. It would have been different, of course.
Tully,
but yeah, Tully. So, but yeah, that is it's one of those moments. Like you say, that we don't know if it. I can't remember how it all kind of went out, but
Dusty got well, he got fired in January, I think, shortly after Starrcade.
Yep.
He was gone then and off to Polka Dot Land.
Yeah.
And then the Warriors just kind of, I think they quietly turned back face, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But again, that comes down to what Bob said earlier about the lack of planning.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you've got to put that on the Turner brass and everything, and not realizing that that's a sad thing is Crockett, after the UWF purchase, you know, Crockett really becomes a story of what could have been. There was no other organization in the United States that would have been able to give WWF the run for its money that Crockett could. And we as fans didn't know the behind the scenes stuff at the time. I know there were dirt sheets and everything out there, but I'm just looking back on my life. I didn't know about dirt sheets until I was in college. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so yeah, with the hindsight of all this, it's like, oh, if only they could have kept this going a little bit longer, if they could have done this or they could have done that. And really, when you see just it knowing that it's Turner Brass and that Dusty got fired for this, it's just kind of like, come on, man. You know, this is a guy who'd been in it all his life. He knew what he was doing, and I know you have your mandates and everything, but sometimes, Daddy, you just got to you got to ride that lightning bolt with him, you know, and go for the ride and get the ratings, for crying out loud. Because, man, what a promo, what a story that it could have been.
I got a potential partner, Tenryu. They were 6-man champions with Tenryu.
Okay. All right. Yep.
So they could have, with Paul, they could have said, we're bringing in the only man we trust, and we don't trust no one in this stinking country. Yeah. So we're bringing someone in from Japan.
Yeah.
You know,
or really, Luger could have jumped in at that point too. You know,
they turned on it. Whoever would have been the extra guy, all three of them would have to turn on him. He would do the job, right? So the Dusty and the Heroes could win, and then they would turn on whoever was stupid enough to trust the Warriors.
Well, I thought you meant Dusty and Sting teaming up with someone there, but
Luger could join their team for sure. But I'm thinking, like, whoever, if an American like Dr. Death joined the Warriors, they would have to beat him by the end of the match. Like, you're stupid for trusting us.
That's right. Oh yeah, definitely. We just want to beat up people. You're a big man that would be fun to beat up. But then you've got a whole other angle now with Dr. Death going after them.
Yeah.
You know, and he was a big enough and strong enough dude. I mean, just, you know, I know this isn't about fantasy booking, but Dr. Death was a big enough and strong enough dude that could have been a legit thing that he would have had to either done like a gauntlet kind of thing with them, handicap match, and even come out on top with something like that.
Do you know if Doc and Gordy ever wrestled the Warriors in Japan?
I don't know if they ever did or not. I don't know much about his Japanese career outside of what I hear Jim Ross talk about and people talk about here and there.
Talk about hard hitting. That would have been an ugly match.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
All right. This has been awesome.
I've had a blast, man. I really appreciate you having me on, and I didn't say it at the outset, but since we're winding down, I'll say it now. You know, years ago when I started the podcast Geek Out Loud, I did it because I wanted to have just a place where I could celebrate the things I enjoy, and not have forums and everything where people were just griping it, because this was still in the days of forums, where everyone was just griping about everything. And it's one of the things that I love about your channel and all that you do is it's just a celebration of what you enjoy. And so it's one of those things where I'm like, well, you do what I wanted to do, but 1,000 times better. And so I love watching you. I love the passion and the energy you bring to things, man. And it's just it's an awesome thing. And I appreciate your channel so much. It's so good. And so I'm honored to have even been here on this with you and done this. It was a great time.
Oh man, pleasure's mostly mine.
About 50% of it. Yeah.
No, this has been fun. And it's funny, like I never really thought about it, because with wrestling it's always the match, right? What's your favorite match?
Yeah.
What are the best matches? Sometimes the promos are more discussion starters.
Yeah,
there's more to talk about about the promo than the actual match itself, because what's the match? You know, they do this move, they do that move, oh, they flub that, and 1 2 3, and that's great. But the good promos are ones you can watch over and over again, and they just get better every time you watch them. You notice the talent that went into it, the creativity, and some of the promos we watched tonight have given me the goose pimples and fired me up. The Hard Times promo, always, you know, Randy Savage always really pumps me up. Sometimes a good promo, even if it led to nothing, can be even more enjoyable than a match.
Well, that's what's interesting, is especially in the mid 80s with wrestling, you know, it was all about selling tickets to your, well, we'd call them house shows now. You know, they do the loop, of course, and everyone knows this. I don't know why I'm repeating everything, but so a lot of your television was made up of a lot of promos, and they were talking you into the next town. They were talking you into showing up for this match or that match, and they would cut promos on each other for really what it wasn't going to be a big event. It was going to be this week at the Omni, this week at the Coliseum, this weekend in Augusta, this week, you know, we're going to be down there, and down in Jacksonville, you know, I'll see you there. And so fans in Jacksonville, you want to be there. And as a fan watching, if, you know, you never really knew what happened. They might come back and have a little bit, they might have a cold opening where they show the last few seconds of a match from some show this past week, and they're like, fans, what you saw is what took place in Baltimore this week. And you know, and we're going to hear from the Rock and Roll Express about what they think Jim Cornette did then, you know. And so if you didn't get to go to these matches, you were just kind of catching up, and it was a lot of talking. You got to see your favorites wrestle these enhancement talent guys, you know, we used to call them no names, you know, and that was cool and that was fun. But these big matches, you know, you're like, oh, what would it be like to get to see that? Now those, you know, morphed in the pay-per-view and everything, but it was always the same formula. You've got to have something to catch people's attention, to get them invested in what you're doing, to get them to lay down their money, to invest in what is about to take place. And a good promo will do that 100% of the time.
Absolutely. And speaking of good promos and good chats, Geek Out Loud is where people can listen to you. Tell them where to find it.
Geekoutpodcast.com, or anywhere you catch podcast, you can put in your feed and go there. I'm not as consistent as I would like to be, but I try to just have a good time. We talk everything from toys to movies, to whatever is on my mind, to just stupid stories in the news these days, and just try to have a good time. It's really all about just having fun.
Yep, man, I appreciate your time. It's always a pleasure talking wrestling with you, and especially I really appreciate talking to you about this stuff, because I love NWA, classic NWA, 80s, I should say 80s NWA, and I didn't get to get into it until the 90s. So it's really cool to be able to talk to someone who has those first-hand experiences of one of the greatest. I mean, I grew up on WWF and I loved it, but when I started watching NWA in the 90s and watching some of the old tapes, watching Ronnie Garvin before he was rugged Ronnie Garvin.
Yep.
Hands of Stone Ron Garvin.
That's right. Proud to be an American, Ron
Garvin. I kept seeing these guys who eventually ended up in WWF, and I saw them in their NWA run before, and I went, whoa, this was better.
Yeah.
Like I got the watered down rugged Ronnie Garvin. I wish I had gotten Hands of Stone Ron Garvin and the American, well, he was the American Dream in WWF, but pre-Polka Dot. I wanted the Bull of the Woods Dusty Rhodes.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it's always great getting your firsthand memories of what it was like growing up in the Crockett territory.
It was something else. But now see, I'm the reverse of that. When the rock and wrestling came along, I'm like, gosh, I wish I could watch more of this. I wish I could see more of this, and we didn't really have cable, so there was no USA in my home. Everything we got wrestling was on a UHF channel, but we could pick up the Super Station because it's right over in Atlanta, and somehow we were able to keep up with it. One of my earliest wrestling memories is at a friend's house. I was a child. We were at a family's house, having dinner with them that night, and the kids were all kind of playing themselves. And this person's older brother was watching wrestling, and I remember cackling to the top of my lungs because the locker room emptied out for some reason on Saturday night, and there was just this huge melee in the middle of the ring, and I just remember thinking it was the funniest thing I'd ever seen because people just kept coming and kept coming and I wish I could figure out how old I was to know kind of what year that was to go look for that, but I honestly, it's just one of those early wrestling memories, so I would have been 5 or 6 years old when that happened, but I just remember loving every minute of it, and I was hooked, man. I was hooked on wrestling from that point on.
Yeah, it's awesome. My first wrestling memory was watching the Junkyard Dog wrestle on either Superstars or Challenge or whatever it was, but that's what hooked me too. It's like, this guy is awesome. Is that Mr. T? No, it's not Mr. T. He's cooler than Mr. T.
Easy.
He was tied.
Yeah, that's right. Thanks, Michael. I appreciate it, man.
Thank you. And everyone watching this, have a great night. Keep breathing. And don't let anyone steal your joy and throw it in a bag with a snake. Nervous day.